Hey there, incredible humans. Before we dive into this absolutely mind-blowing story, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button, seriously, smash it, because what you're about to witness will completely shatter every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. And I want you to comment below the exact moment when you felt that surge of human pride. Trust me, you'll know when it happens. This isn't just a story about humans proving themselves. It's about the moment we stopped asking for permission and started taking charge. The crystalline walls of the Nexus Trade Summit gleamed with the light of 1,000 stars, each surface reflecting the assembled representatives of 63 galactic civilizations. This was the crown jewel of diplomatic architecture, a space station the size of Earth's moon, suspended in the neutral zone where the galaxy's most powerful species gathered, annually to decide the fate of countless worlds. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez sat in the back row of the massive amphitheater, her jaw clenched as she watched the proceedings unfold before her. Around her, representatives from dozens of other probationary species fidgeted in their uncomfortable seats, all of them relegated to what the galactic establishment euphemistically called observation section. In reality, it was the kids' table of galactic politics. The motion to expand mining rights in the Kepler sector passes, announced Supreme Chancellor Vexahan, his towering Vorthak form radiating psychic authority that made the air itself seem to vibrate with power. His species had ruled the galactic hierarchy for over 10,000 years, their ability to manipulate minds and matter through pure thought making them virtually untouchable. Elena watched as the real players of galactic civilization conducted their business. The Zeridian Collective, beings of pure energy who could rewrite local reality at will, flickered between dimensions as they cast their votes. The Chronari Hegemony, whose very bodies were living weapons capable of reshaping themselves for any combat situation, stood silent and imposing in their designated section. And then there were the humans. 47 species held voting rights. In the Galactic Council, humans weren't among them. Dr. Park, Elena whispered to the man beside her, remind me again why we're here? Dr. James Park, Earth's chief xenobiologist and arguably one of the most brilliant minds in human space, didn't look up from his datapad. Because someone has to represent our interests, he replied quietly, even if those interests amount to begging for scraps from the adults' table. Captain Marcus Torres, sitting on Elena's other side, made a sound that might have been a laugh. If it weren't so bitter. 40 years since first contact, he muttered. 40 years of proving ourselves, and we're still treated like children who can't be trusted with the real decisions. Behind them, Arya's holographic form flickered into existence, a translucent blue figure that most aliens dismissed as primitive computational assistants. In reality, Arya was one of humanity's most advanced artificial intelligences, but the galactic establishment's prejudices worked in their favor. Nobody paid attention to what they considered to be simple technology. The motion to redistribute defense responsibilities in the core worlds is now before the Council. Chancellor Vexahan continued, his mental voice resonating directly in the minds of everyone present. The Vorthak Empire proposes expanding our psychic monitoring network to include, excuse me, Chancellor, Elena's voice cut through the chamber as she stood, her words amplified by the translation systems. Humanity would like to contribute to this discussion. The effect was immediate and humiliating. A ripple of what could only be described as amused condescension swept through the chamber. Several of the Chronari actually clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their species. The Zeridian's energy forms pulsed with colors that Elena's cultural briefings had taught her, indicated mockery. Chancellor Vexahan's massive head turned toward the observation section, his four eyes focusing on Elena with the kind of attention one might give to a particularly bold insect. Ambassador Rodriguez, his mental voice carried overtones of patronizing amusement. While we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm, this particular discussion involves matters of galactic security that require, shall we say, more sophisticated capabilities. With respect, Chancellor, Elena replied, her diplomatic training keeping her voice level despite the anger burning in her chest. Humanity has extensive experience in defense and security matters. Our military has. The laughter that erupted from the council floor was not cruel. Exactly. But it was dismissive in a way that hurt worse than outright hostility. These beings weren't laughing at humanity out of malice. They were laughing because the idea of humans contributing to galactic defense was genuinely absurd to them. My dear Ambassador, came a voice from the Zeridian delegation, its words shimmering into existence as visible text in the air. Your species has yet to develop even basic psychic capabilities. Your technology relies on crude matter manipulation, rather than reality adjustment. How exactly do you propose to contribute to the defense of civilizations that transcended your level of development millennia ago? Elena felt Captain Torres tense beside her, and she placed a restraining hand on his arm. Starting a fight here would only confirm every prejudice the Council held about human aggression and lack of diplomatic sophistication. Perhaps, Chancellor, Vexahan continued, his mental tone taking on the cadence of a parent explaining something to a slow child, humanity would be better served focusing on the roles for which you are naturally suited. Agricultural production, raw material extraction, basic manufacturing, these are valuable contributions that play to your species' strengths. Dr. Park leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. Chancellor, if I may, humanity has made significant advances in defensive technologies that might complement the Council's existing capabilities. Our research into Dr. Park interrupted Councillor Jithkar of the Kronari hegemony, her living weapon body. Shifting into a configuration that Elena recognized as dismissive, your species' greatest technological achievement is achieving faster-than-light travel through crude space folding. We have been manipulating dimensional barriers for over 50,000 years. The gap between our capabilities and yours is not one that can be bridged through enthusiasm. The words hung in the air like a death sentence for human ambition. Elena looked around the chamber, seeing the mixture of amusement, condescension, and outright dismissal on alien faces. These beings genuinely believed that humanity was simply too primitive, too limited, too weak to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. The motion passes, Chancellor Vexahan announced, dismissing the human intervention as if it had never happened. Defense responsibilities will be expanded among the qualified species. Now moving on to resource allocation. Elena sank back into her seat, feeling the weight of 40 years of human diplomacy crushing down on her shoulders. Every attempt to join the galactic community as equals had been met with the same gentle, patronizing refusal. Humanity was useful for manual labor, for providing raw materials, for filling the roles that more advanced species found beneath them. But leadership, strategic thinking, military capability? The idea was laughable. That's when the alarms began to sound. The chamber's lighting shifted to emergency amber as urgent alerts cascaded across every display surface. Chancellor Vexahan's psychic presence suddenly blazed with focused intensity as he processed incoming data streams at superhuman speeds. Emergency session, his mental voice cut through the chaos, no longer carrying any trace of its earlier amusement. We have a Code Omega situation developing in the Outer Rim. All council members to your stations immediately. Elena watched as the various alien delegations shifted into crisis mode with practiced efficiency. The Vorthak extended their psychic networks, linking minds across vast distances to coordinate response. The Zeridians began phasing in and out of reality, gathering information from across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Chronari reshaped their bodies into configurations optimized for receiving and processing tactical data. It was an impressive display of advanced civilization responding to crisis. It was also a clear reminder of just how far beyond human capabilities these species operated. "Dr. Park," Elena said quietly, "can Arya tap into the emergency data streams?" "Already on it," Park replied, his fingers dancing across his datapad. As he interfaced with their AI, Arya's analysis subroutines are designed to be invisible to most alien sensors. "We should be able to—" He trailed off, his face going pale as data scrolled across his screen. "What is it?" Torres demanded. "The Devourer Plague," Park whispered. "It's not just an outbreak. It's a systematic extermination event." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The Devourer Plague had been a growing concern in the Outer Rim territories. For months, a mysterious condition that seemed to consume both technology and organic matter, leaving behind only empty husks. But the galactic establishment had been treating it as a manageable crisis, confident that their advanced capabilities would contain it. "Arya," Elena subvocalized, knowing their AI would pick up her words through the neural interface, "give me the real situation." The holographic figure flickered, then began displaying data that made Elena's blood run cold. Star system after star system showing as consumed or abandoned. Refugee streams numbering in the billions. And most terrifying of all, a clear pattern, showing the plague specifically targeting the most advanced civilizations first. "It's not random," she breathed. "It's hunting them." On the council floor, Chancellor Vexahan was coordinating a response with the kind of precision that came from 10,000 years of galactic leadership. Psychic networks carried orders across the galaxy instantaneously. Reality manipulation. Technology began reshaping defensive barriers around core worlds. Living weapons prepared for deployment against an enemy that had already consumed 3-star systems. But Elena, watching the data streams that Arya was secretly analyzing, could see what the galactic establishment couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge. Every species the plague had targeted first possessed exactly the kinds of advanced capabilities that the Council prided itself on. Psychic networks, reality manipulation, living technology, dimensional barriers, all the things that made these civilizations superior to humanity were exactly what the plague seemed designed to consume. "Chancellor," Elena called out, rising from her seat again. The psychic attention that focused on her this time carried no amusement, only barely controlled irritation. "Ambassador Rodriguez, this is not the time for— It's targeting your strengths," Elena interrupted, her voice carrying across the chamber with surprising force. "The plague. It's specifically designed to consume advanced technology and psychic energy. Every species it's hit first has been one of the council races." The silence that followed was different from the earlier dismissal. This was the silence of minds processing an unwelcome possibility. "Impossible," Counselor Zethkar stated flatly. "The plague is a natural phenomenon, a parasitic organism that— No." Dr. Park interrupted, his scientific training overriding diplomatic protocol as he studied Arya's analysis. "Elena's right. Look at the infection patterns. The plague doesn't just consume randomly, it specifically targets neural networks, psychic amplifiers, reality manipulation matrices. It's like it was designed to counter exactly the kinds of capabilities that make your civilizations advanced." "Preposterous," Chancellor Vexahan's mental voice carried overtones of angry dismissal. "You're suggesting that some intelligence specifically engineered a weapon to target galactic civilization? The technical knowledge required would be beyond human understanding." "Yes," Elena finished, But maybe that's exactly why we can see it. We're not advanced enough to be targets. We're flying under its radar. The chamber erupted into chaotic discussion as alien minds processed this possibility. Dvorthic's psychic networks buzzed with rapid communication. The Zeridians flickered between dimensions, consulting alternate reality versions of themselves. The Chronari shifted into combat configurations, preparing for threats they couldn't yet define, but Elena noticed something else, something that sent a chill through her diplomatic heart. They were panicking. For the first time in 40 years. Of human-alien relations, Elena was seeing these supremely confident and possibly advanced beings truly afraid. And more importantly, she was seeing them struggle with a problem that their vast capabilities couldn't solve. The situation is under control, Chancellor Vexahan announced, though his psychic emanation suggested otherwise. The Council will implement enhanced defensive measures. Psychic barriers will be strengthened, reality anchors will be deployed, and our most advanced weapon systems will be brought online. Elena stood again, knowing she was about to cross a line that could end humanity's participation in galactic civilization entirely. That's exactly what it wants you to do, she said. The chamber fell silent. I beg your pardon? Chancellor Vexahan's mental voice carried dangerous undertones. Every response you're planning plays directly into the plague's strengths. Elena continued, her diplomatic training warring with her growing certainty. More psychic networks for it to consume. More advanced technology for it to turn against you. More reality manipulation for it to corrupt. And what? Counselor Zethkar's voice dripped with disdain. Does humanity propose we do instead? Fight this threat with your primitive kinetic weapons and chemical explosives? Elena met the alien's gaze steadily. Yes, the laughter that erupted was louder and more dismissive than before. But this time, Elena didn't back down. You're thinking like advanced civilizations, she said, her voice carrying over the alien amusement. But this enemy was designed to fight advanced civilizations. Maybe what you need is a primitive approach. This is absurd, Chancellor Vexahan declared. The Council will not waste time on. The alarm sounded again, more urgent this time. Fresh data cascaded across the displays, showing the plague's advance accelerating. 2 more star systems had gone dark while they debated. How long until it reaches the core worlds? Elena asked quietly. The silence that greeted her question was answer enough. Chancellor Vexahan's psychic presence dimmed as he processed tactical projections. 6 months, he admitted reluctantly. Perhaps less if it continues to accelerate. And how many conventional responses have worked so far? Another silence. Elena looked around the chamber, seeing fear and uncertainty replacing the earlier arrogance. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millennia, confident in their superiority, certain that their advanced capabilities could handle any threat. They were about to discover how dangerous certainty could be. I'm formally requesting that humanity be granted emergency authorization to investigate the plague using our own methods, Elena announced. Absolutely not, Counselor Zethkar snapped. We will not risk. Risk what? Elena shot back. Your current approach is failing. Your most advanced civilizations are being consumed one by one. What exactly do you think you're protecting by? Keeping us out? Chancellor Vexahan's 4 eyes studied Elena with new intensity. For the first time since she'd known him, the supreme leader of galactic civilization looked uncertain. One chance, he said finally, his mental voice heavy with reluctance. Humanity will be permitted to investigate using your primitive methods. But understand this, Ambassador Rodriguez, if your approach fails, if you make the situation worse, humanity will be banned from galactic space permanently. Elena felt her heart pounding as the weight of her species' entire future settled on her shoulders. Around her, The other human delegates looked at her with expressions ranging from admiration to horror. "Understood, Chancellor," she replied. "We won't let you down." As she spoke the words, Elena hoped desperately that she was right, because if she was wrong, humanity had just gambled its entire future on the belief that sometimes being primitive was exactly what the situation required. The next 48 hours would determine whether that gamble paid off, or whether it would be humanity's last act on the galactic stage. Hey there, amazing humans. Are you feeling that tension? Can you sense the moment when everything is about to change? We're just getting started, and I can already feel the goosebumps forming. If you're as excited as I am to see how humanity rises to this impossible challenge, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you think our secret weapon is going to be. The emergency briefing room aboard the human diplomatic vessel New Geneva hummed with quiet efficiency as Elena and her team worked through the night. Outside the viewport, the Nexus Trade Summit continued its emergency session, Alien Civilizations, coordinating their response to a threat that grew worse by the hour. "Arya, show me everything," Elena commanded as she settled into her chair. The AI's holographic form materialized in the center of the room, immediately beginning to display three-dimensional tactical maps that painted a grim picture. "The plagues? Advance pattern is highly sophisticated," Arya reported, her voice carrying none of the limitations that aliens expected from human technology. "It's not spreading randomly, it's following economic and communication networks, always targeting the most technologically advanced settlements first." Dr. Park leaned forward, studying the data with the intensity that had made him humanity's leading expert on alien biology. "Look at this infection timeline," he said, highlighting specific data points. "The plague hits a world, and within 72 hours, all advanced technology stops functioning. But here's what's interesting. It doesn't destroy the technology, it converts it." "Converts it how?" Captain Torres asked, his military mind already working through tactical implications. "Into more of itself," Park replied grimly. "Every psychic amplifier becomes a plague transmitter. Every reality manipulation device becomes a tool for spreading the infection. Every piece of advanced AI becomes part of a growing distributed intelligence." Elena felt a chill as the implications sank in. It's not just consuming civilization. It's turning civilization against itself. "Exactly," Arya confirmed. "And there's something else. The plague specifically targets species with certain characteristics. Advanced neural networks, psychic capabilities, reality manipulation abilities. It's almost as if it was designed by someone who knew exactly how galactic civilization works," Elena finished. "Someone who understood their strengths and turned them into weaknesses." Torres stood and began pacing, his soldier's instincts activated. "So we're dealing with an engineered weapon. Question is, who made it and why?" "That's secondary right now," Elena replied. "First, we need to prove that human methods can actually work against this thing. If we're wrong." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood the stakes. "Arya, what assets do we have available?" Elena asked. The AI's display shifted, showing human ships and installations across local space. It wasn't an impressive sight compared to the vast fleets of the galactic powers, but Elena had learned long ago not to judge capability by appearances. "The cargo vessel Persistence is 3 hours out," Arya reported. "Captain Sarah Kim commanding. They're carrying a full load of mining equipment and construction materials for the Outer Rim colonies." "Mining equipment," Torres mused. "Not exactly what I'd call military hardware." "Maybe that's exactly what we need," Dr. Park interjected. "If the plague targets advanced technology, perhaps crude mechanical systems would be invisible to it." Elena nodded slowly. Arya, patch me through to Captain Kim. The holographic display shifted to show a tired-looking woman in her 40s, wearing the practical uniform of a human merchant marine. Captain Sarah Kim had spent the last 20 years hauling cargo to the frontier worlds that more advanced species considered beneath their notice. Ambassador Rodriguez, Kim's voice carried the kind of weary professionalism that came from decades of dealing with bureaucracy. I heard about the emergency session. What do you need? Captain, Howard, you feel about making history? Kim's expression shifted from tired resignation to interested wariness. What kind of history are we talking about? The kind where humanity proves it belongs at the big kids' table, Elena replied. But it's going to be dangerous, possibly suicidal. Grins spread across Kim's weathered features. Ambassador, I've been hauling cargo through space for 2 decades. Suicidal is part of the job description. What's the mission? Elena outlined their plan, such as it was. Take the Persistence to the edge of plague-infected space and see if human technology could operate where alien systems failed. Gather intelligence on the plague's actual capabilities. Most importantly, prove that humanity's primitive approach might succeed where advanced methods had failed. The Council thinks we're going to fail, Elena concluded. They're giving us one chance to prove ourselves, but they're expecting us to come back with our tails between our legs. Well, Kim replied with a kind of stubborn determination that had carried humanity to the stars, I guess we'll just have to disappoint them. When do we leave? Now, Elena said. And Captain, this mission is entirely voluntary. If any of your crew wants out, with respect, Ambassador, my crew signed up to haul cargo through hostile space for species that barely acknowledge our existence. Fighting mysterious plagues for the future of galactic civilization? That's practically a vacation. 2 hours later, Elena found herself aboard the Persistence, a vessel that perfectly embodied humanity's approach to space travel. Where alien ships were elegant, flowing works of art that barely seemed to obey physical laws, human vessels were blunt instruments built to endure. The Persistence looked like exactly what it was, a working ship designed by people who couldn't afford to replace things when they broke. Welcome aboard, Captain Kim said as she showed Elena to the bridge. She's not much to look at, but she's reliable. Most important thing in space. The bridge was cramped compared to the soaring chambers of alien vessels, but every surface spoke of functionality over form. Banks of mechanical switches and physical displays lined the walls. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their hands working controls that would have seemed primitive to any alien observer. Dr. Park, what's our scientific package? Elena asked as the ship prepared for departure. Everything we could think of, Park replied, consulting his tablet. Biological samplers, electromagnetic scanners, good old-fashioned cameras and microphones. If Arya's right about the plague targeting advanced technology, our low-tech approach might actually let us gather data that alien sensors can't. Speaking of Arya, Torres interjected, is she going to be safe? I mean, she's still an AI. The holographic figure flickered into existence. I've isolated my core processes from any external networks, Arya reported. As far as the plague should be concerned, I'm just a simple holographic display system. My actual intelligence is running on hardened human servers with purely mechanical interfaces. Elena nodded, feeling the familiar mixture of fear and determination that came before any major operation. All right, people. Let's go show the galaxy what primitive humans can do. The Persistence departed the Nexus Trade Summit without fanfare. Just another human cargo vessel heading for the frontier. But Elena knew that Chancellor Vexahan and the other council members would be monitoring their progress, waiting for the inevitable failure that would confirm their prejudices about human limitations. 6 hours later, They reached the edge of plague-infected space. Dropping out of FTL now, Captain Kim announced. Switching to conventional propulsion. The stars resolved into stable points of light, but Elena immediately noticed something wrong with the view. Where the navigation charts showed a thriving mining colony should be, there was only empty space and slowly expanding debris clouds. Scanning, Dr. Park reported, his instruments working with mechanical precision. I'm detecting massive amounts of organic material mixed with metallic components. It's like the entire station was digested. Life signs? Elena asked. Negative. Whatever happened here, there are no survivors. Torres was studying tactical displays, his military training analyzing the destruction patterns. This wasn't a battle, he reported grimly. There's no evidence of weapons fire or explosion damage. The station just came apart. Aria, any electromagnetic signatures? The AI's holographic form flickered as she processed sensor data. Multiple anomalous readings. There's definitely technological activity in the debris field, but it's unlike anything in our databases. Unlike how? Elena demanded. It's as if someone took advanced alien technology and rewrote its basic operating principles. The signatures are familiar but fundamentally altered. Captain Kim's voice cut through their analysis. Ambassador, we've got incoming contacts. 3 vessels heading this way fast. Elena felt her heart rate spike. Alien ships? Unknown configuration, Kim replied. They're not matching any known designs. The main display lit up with tactical data as 3 objects approached their position. Elena stared at the images, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature control. The approaching vessels were clearly artificial, but they moved with organic fluidity. Metallic surfaces pulsed with what looked like circulatory systems. Structures that might once have been elegant alien architecture now twisted into predatory configurations. Those used to be ships, Dr. Park breathed. Look at the underlying hull structures. That one was definitely Zeridian design. And that one, that's Chronari Biotech. Converted, Elena whispered. The plague didn't destroy them. It turned them into something else. They're accelerating, Captain Kim reported. Intercept in 90 seconds. Torres was already moving toward the weapons station. Captain, what kind of armament do we have? Standard cargo protection package, Kim replied. Kinetic barrier guns, a couple of missile tubes, point defense lasers. Nothing fancy. Perfect, Torres said with grim satisfaction. Nothing fancy is exactly what we need. Elena watched as the converted ships closed the distance, her mind racing through possibilities. This was it, the moment that would determine whether humanity's approach had any merit or whether they were about to become another casualty of the plague's advance. All stations prepare for engagement, she ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for our lives here. We're fighting to prove that humanity deserves a place in this galaxy. The converted ships opened fire with weapons that defied conventional physics, energy beams that twisted through space like living things. But the Persistence was ready. And for the first time since the plague began its rampage, something was about to fight back with weapons it had never encountered before. Crude, mechanical, primitive human weapons that operated according to principles the plague couldn't corrupt. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Kim shouted as the first energy beam lanced past their hull, close enough to make the ship's metal groan from the heat. Elena gripped her console as the Persistence rolled and dove, Kim's piloting skills putting the Ferren de Palin cargo vessel through maneuvers it was never designed for. Around them, the bridge crew worked with mechanical precision, their hands flying over controls that aliens would have dismissed as hopelessly primitive. Target the lead ship, Torres commanded from the weapons station. Kinetic barriers full. Spread. The cargo vessel's defensive systems opened fire, launching clouds of metal pellets at velocities that turned them into armor-piercing projectiles. Elena watched the tactical display as the simple, crude ammunition struck the converted, alien vessel. The effect was immediate and shocking. Where advanced energy weapons had failed to even scratch the plague ship's hulls, the primitive kinetic rounds punched clean through. Sparks erupted from damaged systems as the converted vessel shuddered under impacts that its creators had never prepared it to withstand. Direct hits. Dr. Park called out, his voice filled with amazement. The plague's defensive systems aren't designed to handle simple projectile weapons, because no advanced civilization would use them, Elena realized. The plague's countermeasures are tuned for energy weapons, reality manipulation, psychic attacks, not chunks of metal thrown really fast. The second converted ship fired again, its weapon systems launching what looked like living energy that sought their vessel like a predator hunting prey. But Captain Kim was ready, engaging the ship's mechanical point defense systems. Automated turrets swiveled with hydraulic precision, tracking the incoming attack with purely optical sensors. Laser systems that operated on principles barely more advanced than focused sunlight engaged the energy construct, disrupting its coherence and causing it to dissipate harmlessly. "It can't adapt to our systems," Torres shouted over the sound of alarms. "The plague is trying to corrupt our weapons, but there's nothing for it to latch onto." Elena felt a surge of fierce pride as she watched humanity's crude, practical technology prove itself against an enemy that had consumed civilizations millions of years more advanced. They weren't winning through superior firepower or advanced tactics. They were winning because they were too primitive for the plague to understand. "Arya, are you getting all this?" Elena called out. The AI's holographic form flickered but remained stable. "Recording everything, Ambassador." The plague's infection vectors are completely ineffective against mechanical systems. It's designed to subvert neural networks and quantum processors, not mechanical computers and hydraulic controls. The third converted ship attempted a ramming attack, its hull reconfiguring into a predatory shape designed to tear through enemy vessels. But Torres was ready with the Persistence's trump card. "Deploying mining charges," he announced with satisfaction. "The cargo holds loading mechanisms designed for handling heavy mining equipment, launched a spread of industrial explosives toward the approaching threat." The charges were crude, simple chemical explosives that any alien engineer would have dismissed as hopelessly primitive. They detonated against the converted ship's hull with devastating effect. The plague-infected vessel, designed to withstand exotic energy weapons and reality warping attacks, had no defense against simple chemical explosions. Its hull cracked and split, venting atmosphere and converted biomass into space. "Target destroyed," Torres reported. "The other two are breaking off." Elena watched as the surviving plague ships retreated, their movements uncertain and erratic. For the first time since the crisis began, the mysterious enemy had encountered something it couldn't adapt to, couldn't corrupt, couldn't convert to its own purposes. "Captain Kim, take us closer to the debris field," Elena ordered. "Dr. Park, I want samples of everything. If we're going to convince the Council that our approach works, we need proof." The next 4 hours were a whirlwind of scientific discovery. Dr. Park's mechanical sampling systems gathered data that no alien sensor could have collected, their crude simplicity allowing them to analyze plague-infected material without being corrupted by it. "This is incredible," Park muttered as he studied the results. "The plague isn't just some random parasitic organism. It's a sophisticated bioweapon designed specifically to target the kinds of neural networks and quantum processes that advanced civilizations depend on. But who made it? Elena asked. And why? That's the really disturbing part, Park replied. The genetic markers are artificial, but they're based on technology that predates the current galactic civilization by millions of years. Someone built this thing a long time ago, and it's been waiting. Waiting for what? For civilization to become advanced enough to be vulnerable to it. Elena felt a chill as the implications sank in. The plague wasn't just a weapon, it was a trap designed by some unknown intelligence to trigger when galactic civilization reached a certain level of sophistication. Arya, prepare a data package for transmission to the Council, Elena ordered. Everything we've learned, everything we've recorded. Include tactical recommendations for countering the plague using primitive technology. Already compiled, Ambassador, Arya replied. Though I should warn you, the Council is unlikely to accept our conclusions easily. Admitting that primitive human methods are superior to their advanced systems would challenge everything they believe about the galactic hierarchy. Elena nodded grimly. She knew that the real battle wasn't against the plague. It was against 10,000 years of alien arrogance and the assumption that more advanced automatically meant better. Captain Kim, set course for the Nexus station, she ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do. As the Persistence began its journey back to the Trade Summit, Elena reflected on what they had accomplished. They had proven that human methods could work where alien technology failed. They had gathered intelligence that no other species could have collected. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that sometimes being primitive was exactly what the situation required. But she also knew that their real challenge was just beginning. Convincing the Galactic Council to abandon their advanced methods in favor of human primitiveness would require more than just evidence. It would require them to admit that everything they believed about superiority and advancement might be wrong. And for beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, that admission might be harder to accept than extinction itself. The emergency council session was already in chaos when Elena and her team returned to the Nexus Trade Summit. The massive chamber buzzed with desperate activity as reports of new plague outbreaks cascaded across the displays. 3 more star systems had gone dark while the Persistence was conducting its investigation. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. Chancellor Vexahan's mental voice carried overtones of barely controlled panic as Elena entered the observation section. Our most advanced defensive systems are proving ineffective. The plague appears to be specifically targeting our command and control networks. Elena stepped forward, knowing that the next few minutes would determine not just humanity's place in galactic civilization, but whether that civilization would survive at all. Chancellor, she called out, her voice cutting through the alien discussions. Humanity has completed its investigation. We have critical intelligence about the plague's nature and capabilities. The psychic attention that focused on her was immediate and intense. Every being in the chamber, from the towering Vorthach to the energy forms of the Zeridians, turned their attention to the small human figure standing in the observation section. Report, Chancellor Vexahan commanded. Though his mental voice carried little hope. Elena activated her presentation system, and Arya's holographic displays filled the center of the chamber. The images that appeared drew gasps of shock from the Pax Somnafam, the mother of the Mova. Assembled aliens, clear footage of human weapons, destroying plague ships that had shrugged off the most advanced alien technology. The plague is not a natural phenomenon, Elena began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. It's an engineered bioweapon designed specifically to target advanced civilizations. Every system it attacks, psychic networks, reality manipulation, quantum processing, represents a vulnerability that more primitive technology doesn't share. Counselor Jethkar's living weapon body shifted into an aggressive configuration. You're suggesting that our technological superiority is somehow a weakness? I'm stating a demonstrated fact, Elena replied firmly. Human vessels engaged 3. Plague-converted ships using kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. We destroyed one enemy vessel and forced the others to retreat, something no alien force has accomplished. The chamber erupted in debate as alien minds processed this information. The Vortex psychic networks buzzed with rapid communication. The Zeridians flickered between dimensions, consulting alternate reality versions of themselves. But Elena could see the fear growing behind their arguments. Even if your claims are accurate, Chancellor Vexahan said finally, you're proposing that we abandon millions of years of technological development in favor of primitive methods. The logistical challenges alone would be manageable, Elena. Interrupted, if you're willing to accept human leadership in implementing them. The silence that followed was profound. Elena had just proposed something that no alien in the chamber had ever seriously considered, that humans should lead a galactic military operation. This is preposterous, Counselor Jethkar snapped. Your species lacks the experience, the knowledge, the sheer capability to coordinate defensive operations across thousands of star systems. Our species, Elena replied calmly, just accomplished something that your combined civilizations could not. We engaged the enemy successfully, gathered intelligence on its capabilities, and developed effective countermeasures. What more experience do you need? Dr. Park stepped forward, his scientific credentials lending weight to Elena's political arguments. The data is undeniable, he said, activating detailed displays that showed the plague's infection patterns. Every advanced system the plague encounters becomes part of its network. Psychic amplifiers become transmission nodes. Reality manipulation devices become tools for spreading the infection. Quantum processors become distributed intelligence nodes. He highlighted specific examples from their investigation. But mechanical systems, chemical reactions, simple kinetic weapons, the plague can't interface with them. It's like trying to hack a stone axe. There's nothing there for it to corrupt. Chancellor Vexahan's 4 eyes studied the data with growing unease. You're suggesting that our greatest achievements, the technologies that have defined our civilizations, for millennia, are exactly what makes us vulnerable. Not just vulnerable, Elena corrected. Obsolete. Against this enemy, a human with a chemical rocket launcher is more effective than a Vortex psychic warrior. A mechanical computer is more reliable than a quantum AI. A steel knife is more useful than a reality-warping blade. The philosophical implications sent shockwaves through the chamber. These beings had spent millions of years climbing the ladder of technological advancement, confident that each step made them superior to those below. The idea that primitive could be better was fundamentally alien to their worldview. Even if we accept your analysis, came a voice from the Zeridian delegation, the practical challenges remain insurmountable. How do you propose to retrofit thousands of ships, retrain millions of personnel, and coordinate defensive operations using primitive technology? Elena had been waiting for this question. You don't, she said simply. You let humanity do it. The chamber exploded into chaos. Voices raised in dozens of languages, psychic emanations clashed with reality distortions, and living weapons shifted into threat configurations. The idea of human leadership wasn't just politically unthinkable. It challenged the fundamental order of galactic civilization. Order. Chancellor Vexahan's mental voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Ambassador Rodriguez, explain your proposal. Elena took a deep breath, knowing she was about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Humanity requests immediate authority to coordinate all anti-plague operations. Our ships, our weapons, our tactics, our command structure. We'll work with your existing forces, but the overall strategy and tactical implementation would be under human control. Absolutely not, Counselor Zefkar snarled. We will not subordinate our forces to a species that still uses chemical propulsion. Then you'll lose, Elena replied bluntly. Because your advanced methods don't work against this enemy. Your psychic networks become plague transmission vectors. Your reality manipulation gets corrupted and turned against you. Your living weapons become part of the plague's army. She gestured to Arya's displays, showing the wreckage of alien vessels that had been converted by the plague. Every advantage you think you have is actually a vulnerability. The more advanced your technology, the more easily the plague can subvert it. Captain Torres stepped forward, his military bearing commanding attention even among alien warriors. I've spent 20 years studying galactic military doctrine, he said. Your tactics are impressive when facing conventional enemies, but this isn't a conventional enemy. This is something that turns your strengths against you. He activated tactical displays showing theoretical engagement scenarios. A Vortex psychic assault becomes a plague infection vector. A Zeridian reality manipulation creates vulnerabilities in local spacetime that the plague exploits. A Chronari living weapon provides genetic material for plague evolution. But human tactics, Elena continued, are invisible to the plague's countermeasures. Chemical explosives can't be corrupted. Kinetic weapons can't be turned against us. Mechanical computers can't be hacked by something that only understands quantum networks. The debate that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. 4. The first time since the establishment of the current order, beings who had ruled for millennia were seriously considering accepting leadership from a species they had always considered inferior. The precedent alone would be catastrophic, argued a representative from the Crystalline Confederacy. If we accept human authority in this crisis, what message does that send about the fundamental structure of galactic civilization? That survival matters more than pride, Elena replied. That adaptation is more important than tradition. That maybe, just maybe, the hierarchy you've built isn't as absolute as you thought. The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything the galactic establishment represented. Chancellor Vexahan's psychic presence dimmed as he processed not just the tactical implications, but the philosophical ones. If we grant this request, he said slowly, we would be acknowledging that human methods are superior to our own. That primitive technology is more effective than advanced systems. That a species we've dismissed as barely civilized is more capable than those who have ruled for millions of years. Yes, Elena said simply, that's exactly what you'd be acknowledging. The silence stretched for long moments as alien minds grappled with concepts that challenged their fundamental understanding of reality. Finally, Chancellor Vexahan spoke. The plague has consumed 4 more star systems while we debate, he announced, his mental voice heavy with reluctant decision. Conventional responses have failed. Our most advanced defenses have proven worse than useless. He paused, and Elena could feel the weight of galactic history shifting. Humanity is hereby granted emergency authority over all anti-plague operations, Chancellor Vexahan declared. Ambassador Rodriguez, you are appointed Supreme Military Coordinator with full authority to implement whatever measures you deem necessary. The chamber erupted again, but this time the chaos carried a different energy. Fear mixed with desperate hope as beings who had never considered human leadership suddenly found themselves dependent on it. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a physical force. She was now responsible not just for humanity's future, but for the survival of galactic civilization itself. Thank you, Chancellor, she said, her voice carrying new authority. We won't let you down." As the session dissolved into frantic preparation and coordination, Elena turned to her team. Captain Torres was already pulling up fleet deployment charts. Dr. Park was calculating supply requirements for retrofitting alien vessels with human technology. Arya was coordinating with communication networks across the galaxy. "All right, people," Elena said, feeling the familiar mixture of fear and determination that came before any major operation. "We just convinced the galaxy to bet everything on humanity. Now we have to prove they made the right choice." The next phase of their mission would test not just human capabilities, but human leadership on a scale that had never been attempted. They were about to discover whether humanity was truly ready to lead, or whether they had just committed the greatest act of hubris in galactic history. But for the first time since the plague crisis began, Elena felt something she hadn't dared to hope for before: the possibility that they might actually win. The real work was just beginning. The transformation began immediately. Within hours of Elena's appointment as Supreme Military Coordinator, human efficiency protocols were being implemented across galactic space. The change was so rapid and so comprehensive that alien observers struggled to comprehend how a species they had dismissed as primitive could reorganize their entire civilization so quickly. "Status report," Elena commanded from her new position in the Nexus Command Center, a facility that had been hastily converted from diplomatic chambers to military headquarters. Captain Torres, now serving as Chief of Operations, consulted displays. That showed the most ambitious logistical operation in galactic history. 67 alien species have confirmed cooperation, he reported. We're retrofitting their vessels with human-compatible systems. Chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons, mechanical computers. Resistance? Minimal, considering we're asking them to abandon millions of years of technological development, Torres replied with dry humor. The Chronari are having the hardest time adjusting. Their entire military doctrine is based on living weapons that adapt to threats. The concept of using the same static technology regardless of enemy capabilities is alien to them. Dr. Park looked up from his workstation, where he was coordinating the largest scientific collaboration in galactic history. The technical challenges are significant, he reported. Alien physiology wasn't designed for human interface systems. We're having to develop entirely new control schemes that work with tentacles, mandibles, psychic interfaces. But it's working? Elena asked. Surprisingly well, Park admitted. Once they accept that simpler is better, most species adapt quickly. The Zeridians are actually enjoying the challenge of working purely in baseline reality. They're calling it reality grounding exercises. Elena nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed the plague's continued advance. 5 more star systems had gone dark, but for the first time since the crisis began, they had detailed intelligence on enemy capabilities and a strategy that might actually work. Arya, show me the deployment timeline. The AI's holographic form materialized, displaying a 3-dimensional map of galactic space. Color-coded indicators showed the conversion progress of various alien fleets to human-compatible systems. Phase 1 retrofits will be complete in 72 hours, Arya reported. Phase 2 deployments can begin immediately afterward. Estimated timeline to full operational capability, 1 week. The plague won't wait a week, Elena pointed out. No. Arya agreed, but our preliminary deployments are already showing results. The converted Vorthak Squadron in Sector 7 successfully engaged plague ships using kinetic weapons. 2 enemy vessels destroyed, no losses on our side. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction. The proof of concept was working, but she knew the real test would come when they faced the plague's main forces. What about the source? she asked. Dr. Park's expression grew grave. That's where things get complicated. Arya's analysis suggests the plague originates from a central intelligence, somewhere in the deep void, but reaching it would require penetrating through thousands of converted systems and plague-controlled space. How many ships would we need for a penetration assault? Torres consulted his tactical computers. Conservative estimate? Every available vessel in the galaxy, and we'd still face 60-40 odds against success. Elena studied the strategic situation, her mind working through possibilities that conventional military doctrine wouldn't consider. The plague had been designed to counter advanced civilizations using their own strengths against them. But what? If they could turn that principle around? What if we don't try to fight our way through? She mused. What if we let them come to us? Explain, Torres said, his military instincts recognizing the tone of someone developing a plan. The plague targets advanced civilizations first, right? It's drawn to complex technology, psychic networks, reality manipulation. So what if we gave it exactly what it wants? Dr. Park looked up sharply. You're talking about using bait, creating an irresistible target. Not just any target, Elena said, her thoughts crystallizing into strategy. The ultimate target. A combination of every advanced technology in the galaxy all in one place. The implications dawned on them simultaneously. Arya was the first to voice what they were all thinking. You want to use the Nexus station itself as bait, the AI said. Concentrate every advanced system in galactic space here, make it so tempting that the plague's central intelligence has no choice but to come in person. And when it does, Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. We hit it with everything primitive we've got. The plan that took shape over the next few hours was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. They would strip advanced technology from across the galaxy and concentrate it at the Nexus station, creating a psychic and technological beacon that would draw the plague's attention like a gravitational singularity. The risks are enormous. Chancellor Vexahan pointed out when Elena presented the strategy to the Emergency Council. If the plan fails, we lose not just the station, but every piece of advanced technology in galactic space. If we don't try, Elena replied, the plague will consume everything anyway. At least this way, we control the timing and location of the final battle. The debate was fierce but brief. The plague's advance was accelerating, and conventional defensive strategies were failing across the board. Within 6 hours, Elena's plan was approved and implementation began. What followed was the largest technological migration in galactic history. Psychic amplifiers from Vorthek worlds, reality manipulation devices from Zeridian space, quantum processors from dozens of species, all flowing toward the Nexus station like tributaries feeding a great river. The power readings are off the charts, Dr. Park reported as the concentration grew. The station is becoming a nexus point for every form of advanced technology in the galaxy. The psychic resonance alone is visible from 3 star systems away. Perfect, Elena said. The bigger the beacon, the more irresistible the target. But even as the technological concentration grew, Elena was secretly implementing the second phase of her plan. Hidden among the refugees and supply ships flowing toward the station were vessels carrying very different cargo, thousands of tons of chemical explosives, kinetic weapons, and mechanical systems that the plague couldn't detect or corrupt. Phase 3 deployment complete, Torres reported quietly during one of their private briefings. Every human vessel in the system is loaded with primitive weapons and crewed with personnel trained in mechanical systems only. The alien fleets? Converted to human specifications and standing by. The Vorthek are actually excited about using projectile weapons. They're calling it kinetic meditation. Elena nodded, feeling the familiar tension that came before a major. Operation. Everything was falling into place, but she knew that the real test would come when the plague's central intelligence took the bait. They didn't have to wait long. Contact. Arya announced, her holographic form flickering with urgent. Data. Massive spatial distortions detected at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through. The tactical displays lit up with readings that defied comprehension. Whatever was approaching wasn't just large. It was reality-alteringly vast. A presence that warped space-time around itself like a gravitational anomaly. The central intelligence, Dr. Park breathed. It's coming personally. Elena stood in the command center, watching as sensors tracked the approach of an entity that had consumed star systems and turned entire civilizations against themselves. Around her, the greatest collection of advanced technology in galactic. History hummed with power, a beacon that had successfully drawn the plague's ultimate attention. All stations, prepare for Phase 4, she announced, her voice carrying to every ship in the system. Remember, when this starts, everything depends on timing. Let it commit fully before we reveal our hand. The entity that emerged from the distorted space was beyond anything they had imagined. Part machine, part organism, part force of nature, it defied classification or description. Its presence alone began corrupting the advanced systems on the station, turning psychic amplifiers into transmission nodes and reality manipulation devices and tools of conversion. It's working, Arya reported, though her holographic form was beginning to flicker as plague influence spread through the station systems. The entity is focusing entirely on the technological concentration. It's not detecting our primitive systems at all. Elena watched as the plague's ultimate weapon moved toward what it believed was the greatest prize in galactic history, the concentrated essence of advanced civilization itself. Wait for it, she commanded, her finger hovering over the activation switch for the most primitive weapon system in the galaxy. The moment of truth was approaching, and with it, the answer to whether humanity's leadership would save galactic civilization or destroy it. Everything they had worked for, everything they had sacrificed, came down to the next few minutes. Contact in 30 seconds, Torres reported. Elena's hand tightened on the switch. All units stand by. On my mark, we show this thing what primitive really means. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and for the first time in galactic history, it rested in human hands. The plague entity filled the viewports of the Nexus station like a living nightmare, its surface writhing with corrupted technology from 1,000 consumed civilizations. Vortex psychic amplifiers pulsed with malevolent energy along its hull. Zeridian reality manipulation devices created impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. Chronari living weapons had been twisted into predatory configurations that suggested intelligence far beyond their original design, all advanced. Systems are compromised, Arya reported, her holographic form flickering more severely as plague influence spread through the station. The entity is interfacing with every piece of technology we concentrated here. It's treating the whole station like a massive neural network. Elena watched the corruption spread, seeing exactly what she had hoped to see. The plague intelligence was so focused on consuming the technological feast they had prepared that it was completely ignoring the crude mechanical systems hidden throughout the station. Phase 4 deployment confirmed, Torres reported from his purely mechanical console. All primitive systems remain undetected. The entity has no idea we're here. Around them, the station shuddered as the plague intelligence began its assimilation process. Psychic networks that had operated for millions of years suddenly turned into transmission vectors for alien thoughts. Reality manipulation devices began rewriting local physics according to plague specifications. The very air seemed to thicken with malevolent intelligence. Now, Elena commanded, What happened next would be remembered as the most primitive assault in galactic military history and the most effective. Hidden mechanical systems throughout the station activated simultaneously. Chemical explosive. Charges placed with military precision throughout the plague entity's hull detonated in sequence. Kinetic weapons launched streams of simple metal projectiles at velocities that turned them into armor-piercing rounds. Chemical rockets, guided by purely optical targeting systems, streaked toward critical points on the entity's surface. The effect was immediate and devastating. The plague intelligence, designed to counter psychic attacks, reality manipulation, and quantum weapons, had absolutely no defense against explosives that operated on simple chemical reactions. Its hull, configured to absorb and redirect exotic energies, cracked and split under the impact of crude projectile weapons. Direct hits across all target zones. Torres shouted over the sound of alarms and explosions. The entity's defensive systems aren't even responding to our weapons. Because it doesn't recognize them as weapons, Dr. Park added, his voice filled with amazement. To an intelligence that evolved to fight advanced civilizations, our chemical explosives might as well be naturally occurring phenomena. But Elena knew they were just getting started. The assault on the station was only the first phase of her plan. All fleet units, execute Phase 5, she commanded. Full primitive assault, all vectors. The space around the Nexus station suddenly filled with ships that should not have been there. Human vessels that had been running silent using purely mechanical systems emerged from their hiding places like predators revealing themselves to cornered prey. Alien ships retrofitted with human technology opened fire with weapons that the plague intelligence couldn't comprehend or counter. Vorthak vessels, their psychic weapons replaced with kinetic railguns, hammered the entity's hull with projectiles that punched through armor designed to withstand reality-warping attacks. Zeridian ships, operating in baseline reality for the first time in millennia, launched chemical explosives that detonated with simple, devastating effectiveness. Even the Chronari, their living weapons replaced with mechanical systems, fired streams of metal that found their targets with mechanical precision. The entity is trying to adapt, Arya reported, her form stabilizing as the attack drew the plague intelligence's attention away from the station systems. But it's having difficulty analyzing threats that operate on purely physical principles. Elena watched the tactical displays as her plan unfolded with mechanical precision. The plague intelligence, for all its advanced capabilities, was struggling to counter an assault based on principles it had never been designed to face. Central processing node identified, Dr. Park announced, his mechanical scanners penetrating deeper into the entity than any advanced sensor could have managed. It's located in the core structure, protected by converted reality manipulation. Devices. Can we reach it? With conventional weapons? No. The defensive barriers are too strong. Elena studied the tactical situation, her mind racing through possibilities. They had proven that primitive weapons could damage the entity, but its core was still protected by corrupted versions of the most advanced technology in the galaxy. What if we don't use conventional weapons? She mused. Torres looked up from his console. What did you have in mind? Elena's smile was sharp as broken glass. Something so primitive that the entity won't see it coming until it's too late. She activated her communication system, opening channels to every ship in the fleet. All units, this is Supreme Coordinator Rodriguez. Prepare for the most primitive assault in galactic history. We're going to ram it. The silence that followed was profound. Even species that had accepted human leadership balked at the idea of using their ships as projectiles. Ambassador, Chancellor Vexahan's mental voice carried overtones of shock. You're proposing to sacrifice the entire fleet in a kinetic assault? Not the entire fleet, Elena corrected. Just one ship. The Persistence. Captain Kim's voice crackled over the communication system from the cargo vessel that had started this entire adventure. I'm honored, Ambassador, but even we can't punch through those defenses. You won't have to, Elena replied, because you won't be going in alone. She activated the final phase of her plan, the one she had kept secret even from her own team. Hidden throughout the fleet were cargo containers that had been positioned during the general mobilization, each one filled with the most primitive explosive device known to galactic civilization. Nuclear weapons. Every ship in the fleet is carrying a nuclear device, Elena announced. Simple fission bombs that operate on principles so basic that the Plague intelligence will ignore them completely. When the Persistence rams the entity's core, every ship in the fleet will detonate simultaneously. The implications hit everyone at once. They weren't just planning to destroy the Plague intelligence, they were planning to create a nuclear conflagration that would consume everything in the system. The radiation alone will sterilize the entire system, Dr. Park protested. Nothing will survive. Nothing advanced will survive, Elena corrected. But primitive life forms, mechanical systems, basic chemical processes, they'll endure. And sometimes that's enough to start over. Chancellor Vexahan's psychic presence dimmed as he processed the full scope of Elena's plan. You're gambling the future of galactic civilization on the hope that primitive forms of life will survive a nuclear holocaust. I'm betting on the one thing that has never failed in the history of the universe, Elena replied. The ability of simple, stubborn, primitive life to outlast anything the cosmos throws at it. The vote was swift and unanimous. Faced with certain extinction under the Plague's advance, the Galactic Council chose to trust in humanity's most primitive solution. All ships confirm nuclear device activation, Torres reported. Captain Kim reports ready for ramming speed. Elena watched as the Persistence began its final approach toward the Plague entity's core, the little cargo ship that had started humanity's rise to galactic leadership, about to end it in the most primitive way possible. For the record, she announced to the fleet, this isn't how I thought humanity would prove itself to the galaxy. Captain Kim's voice came back over the communication system, steady and determined. Sometimes the best proof is the simplest one, Ambassador. Sometimes you just have to show them you're willing to do whatever it takes. The Persistence struck the Plague entity's core at maximum velocity, its simple kinetic impact punching through defenses that had withstood the most advanced weapons in galactic space. A split second later, every nuclear device in the fleet detonated simultaneously. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, a primitive fire that burned away millions of years of advancement in a single blinding moment. But when the radiation cleared and the debris settled, something remarkable emerged from the devastation. Life. Simple, stubborn, primitive life that had survived the ultimate test. And at its center, broadcasting on frequencies that the Plague had never learned to corrupt, was a single transmission. This is Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Human Federation, the message said. The Plague intelligence has been destroyed. Galactic space is secure. All species are invited to begin reconstruction under the new order. The age of primitive leadership had begun, and somehow, against all odds, it felt exactly right. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of New Nexus Station, watching construction crews rebuild galactic civilization using an approach that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, but the tools they used were deliberately simple, deliberately primitive, deliberately immune to the kind of corruption that had nearly destroyed them all. Status report, she requested from Aria, whose holographic form now appeared through purely mechanical projection systems. Reconstruction proceeds ahead of schedule, Aria reported. 47 star systems have been resettled using hybrid technology that combines alien knowledge with human simplicity. No advanced AI networks, no psychic amplification systems, no reality manipulation devices. And the species adaptation? Remarkably successful. The Vorthok have discovered that mechanical computation actually enhances their natural psychic abilities, rather than replacing them. The Zeridians find that working in baseline reality gives their reality manipulation much more precision. Even the Chronori are adapting their living weapons to work with mechanical interfaces. Elena nodded, feeling a satisfaction that went beyond mere victory. They hadn't just defeated the plague, they had proven that there were many different ways to be advanced, and that sometimes the most sophisticated solution was the simplest one. Any word from the outer surveys? Interesting news, actually, Arya replied. Dr. Park's expedition to the plague's origin point has discovered something significant. The entity wasn't the original creator of the plague, it was another victim. Elena turned sharply. Explain. The plague was created by a species that existed before the current galactic civilization. They built it as a safeguard against their own technological advancement, fearing that their society would become too dependent on advanced systems. When their technology reached a certain level of sophistication, the plague activated and consumed them. So it was designed to reset civilization whenever it became too advanced? Exactly. A forced reboot that would clear the way for simpler forms of life to evolve and try again. Elena contemplated this revelation, its implications both terrifying and oddly comforting. The plague hadn't been an enemy seeking to destroy civilization. It had been an immune system designed to keep civilization healthy by preventing it from becoming too removed from its primitive roots. In a way, she mused, we didn't defeat it. We proved to it that we could be advanced without losing touch with our primitive foundation. That appears to be correct, Arya agreed. The plague's final transmissions, decoded by Dr. Park's team, included what appears to be an acknowledgement of approval. Humanity passed the test. Elena smiled, looking out at the construction work where humans and aliens labored side by side. Ships moved through space using chemical propulsion augmented by alien knowledge of physics. Communication networks operated through mechanical systems enhanced by psychic interfaces. It was a hybrid civilization that took the best of both approaches, while remaining immune to the kind of corruption that had nearly destroyed them. Elena? Came a voice behind her. She turned to see Chancellor Vexahan approaching, his towering Vorthak form somehow seeming less imposing than it once had. Over the past months, the former supreme leader of galactic civilization had become one of humanity's most effective allies. Chancellor, she replied with genuine warmth. How are the new governance protocols working out? Better than I expected, he admitted, his mental voice carrying tones of amazement. Distributed decision-making, democratic consultation, primitive. Voting systems, they're actually more efficient than the old psychic hierarchies. And more importantly, they're more resistant to manipulation or corruption. Elena nodded. The new galactic government was based on human principles of democracy and distributed authority, but implemented through hybrid systems that combined the best of alien and human approaches. It was messier than the old hierarchical system, but it was also more robust and more inclusive. Any regrets? She asked. Vexahan considered the question carefully. About losing our technological supremacy? No. About discovering that our assumptions about advancement were wrong? No. About learning that sometimes the most primitive approach is the most sophisticated. One? He paused, his mental voice carrying what might have been amusement. That one still takes some getting used to. Elena laughed, feeling the kind of contentment that came from a job well done. Humanity had risen from the bottom of the galactic hierarchy to its leadership not through conquest or superior technology, but by proving that different kinds of strength existed and that sometimes the most primitive approach was exactly what the situation required. There's something else, Vexahan continued. We've received signals from beyond the galactic rim. Other civilizations that have been watching our encounter with the plague. They're interested in learning from our approach. Elena felt a thrill of anticipation. The real adventure was just beginning. Humanity had proven itself capable of leading galactic civilization, but the galaxy itself was just the beginning. Tell them. We're ready to share what we've learned, she said. But warn them, our methods can be pretty primitive. Vexahan's mental laughter filled the observation deck. Ambassador, I think the universe is finally ready for that kind of primitive. As Elena looked out at the stars, she reflected on humanity's incredible journey. They had started as a species dismissed as too weak, too primitive, too limited to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. They were ending as the leaders of a new kind of civilization that proved strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the most advanced thing you could do was remain primitive. The galaxy was a very different place than it had been a year ago. And somehow, that felt exactly right. Hey there, absolutely incredible humans. Did you feel that surge of pride? That moment when everything clicked and you realized that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons, but our ability to lead through adaptability and stubborn determination to do whatever it takes? This story proves something that I think is fundamentally true about our species. We don't win because we're the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. We win because we refuse to give up, because we think differently, and because sometimes the most sophisticated solution is the simplest one. I want to know, what moment in this story gave you the biggest rush? Was it when Elena first stood up to the Galactic Council? When humanity proved that primitive weapons could defeat an enemy that had consumed advanced civilizations? Or when we took leadership not through conquest but through proving our approach worked better? Drop a comment below and let me know, and absolutely smash that like button if you believe that humanity's real superpower is our ability to find solutions that nobody else thinks to try. I've got another mind-blowing story ready that explores what happens when humans encounter the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligence and accidentally teach it how to be more human than its creators ever imagined. Trust me, you're going to want to see how that turns out. Click the card here or check out the whole playlist for more stories about why the universe consistently underestimates humanity and why that's always a mistake. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is stay primitive enough to see solutions that everyone else misses. Keep being brilliantly, stubbornly, wonderfully human. See you in the next one, Galaxy Leaders.